The chair. Let's question this predominant notion that we have in Western culture specifically. Why? This book is inspired by Galen Cranz and her book, The Chair, which is why I'm doing this lying down. Anyway, first of all, let's take into account body conscious design. What does this mean? Well, nowadays we just we don't take into account that the body wants to move and change postures and positions, right? As she says, the best posture is the next posture. And usually we're just like slumping and compressing our spine into a C shape all day long. You know, we're just like sitting in weird cushioned chairs or weird designed cart seats that just kind of compress our spine and really just like crumple us into little balls. And then this affects our emotional and psychological lives. And so we have to interact in the way that we educate ourselves about the body, right? Not just being some kind of metaphor for life, but rather being a starting point of life. You know, this is what we are, you know, and the body has many secrets that we probably can be tapped into if we just consciously make the space for it to thrive, expand, and bloom. What is this? You know, consider spaces that invite movement within the home, within the office, within, I don't know, communal spaces, within theaters, malls, whatever, entertainment, all of it that we have. Yeah, and that's body conscious design, right? We are designing things and creating with the body in mind so we can move around, and this will inevitably come with a revolution because it all starts with thought more than anything, right? And certain paradigms. Why? Because sitting down is tied to status, credit, respect, validation, right? You need to be sitting down and be a good boy in order to learn in school. And then you need to be sitting down in order to do great work. And you need to be slumping over your chair, over the keyboard for 8 hours if you want to be a great writer. But what if we question these notions? You know, what if we can actually do great work when we stand up, when we squat, when we lie down, when we sit, when we move around while eating? You know, maybe many cultures wouldn't like you to kneel on the floor to eat, or to stand up while other people are eating, or get out of the chair. You know, so questioning these things comes with a broader paradigm shift, and but actually, that is like bringing consciousness to the choices and beliefs that we give attention to. Why? Because we mostly learn all of these things unconsciously from like mimetic desire or something. We see our parents just like doing it, and we do it without even knowing too much about it, and then we never question it. Like a chair, of course, the more cushioned the better, right? And the more comfy, quote unquote, padded it is, the greater it is, right? And the more I can just like collapse into it and let go of everything, the better it is for my spine. But actually, that's not true, right? We actually want to nourish and support and cultivate an autonomous seating where our back lengthens, where the muscles are engaged and coordinated throughout the whole body, because it's a unit, right? So maybe questioning those machines that only isolate certain parts of the body. What is that? Why don't we work with all of them, right? And then you can use those machines and isolate, but we have to cultivate that awareness of the body working as a holistic being, because the way that it works and the posture that we find ourselves in will affect the emotional life and therefore the causes of future events. You know, if you're slumped down and your spine's collapsed and your atlanto-occipital joint is just compressed, your attention and inevitably quality of work, if that's what you mostly care about, will be affected, and your quality of life. And the longer you live, the more these things will accentuate themselves. And well, we want to accentuate freedom of movement and freedom of life and quality of life, right? So why not normalize lying down, taking calls while lying down, normalizing lying down while at work, while taking a call, while working, in between shifts, decompressing the spine, socializing with family and friends in a living room that serves a multifunctional purpose. You can have a table, like she says, where you can also lie down and people could come over and maybe you're in pain and they could, soothe you and touch you, because the human touch is really powerful. So this is amazing. And this leads me to the second, well, this is like a big first point, right? But the second thing is, well, no, I think I encompass it all in there. It's like movement, chair, design, building a space. Well, we are always existing in relationship with the space and environment that we find ourselves in, right? So creating a layout or layouts, if you're in a building or at work or doing something else different, right? Building a layout that fosters that movement and invites you to play. I think that's important. We can always go back to playing, right? And being like a child. The curiosity of a child to make mistakes, to play around, to move and shift positions and explore the body and explore perhaps, playing with different tools that we've never used before, and moving away from static holding, I think. That's one of the key things that I take from this. And also, like, never seeing or trying to force people into modernizing themselves and sitting in chairs. I think that's a good one. And going and learning from the Eastern cultures that squat, move, perch on stools, and kneel down or crawl, and inviting this animal movement, taking inspirations from animals as well, or the natural way of living, because that's ultimately what we want to, right? We want to go back to a natural way of living where we interfere the least with our use, with our body, and the way it can move without interfering tension or focusing too much on getting things done instead of self-care. And that's vital and it's important. And it all starts in first of all, a desire, right? A desire to change, a desire to look for other options. And this comes from something that we can have, right? Desire to change, learning about these things ourselves, like Galen, and cultivating it ourselves first, and then inviting people, right? Never, look at that, hey Gary, and this is so cool, we can interact with babies or animals at their own level, and that's just like so freaking amazing. And then inviting people, right? Because we're not going to force or shove this down anybody's throat, right? Because we can't do that, and it's hateful, hideous, tedious, all those hideous words. So yeah, let's invite people, find like-minded people, and then when they see that, they'll be like, that movie I forgot, When Harry Met Sally, you'll be, whoa, I want some of that. I'll have what she's having. So yeah, I think that's important. What do you think? Let me know in the comments down below. Meanwhile, I'm going to keep decompressing my spine with this constructive rest position, which you can find more about if you Google it. But yeah, have a good one.